therapy that you received as an adult, was it psychoanalytic therapy? And if so, did you have a psychologist who actually understood autism as well as the dynamics that needed to go into psychotherapy for you? I have a second part to the question, but
Sure.
Well, and I'm going to tell you too that she is a psychologist and she's an assessor who tests children with autism.
Oh, great.
So
Okay.
she would have particular interest in what you have to say about it.
I had a child therapist when I was when I was 11 on until I was 20. And then I was pretty much with a therapist. I think it was a marriage family counselor for a number of years. I'm very loyal to the people I'm with, so I was there. And then it was about 2007, 2008, where I wasn't really making any progress with some of the issues that we've talked about. And I went to see a psychoanalyst, and I've been with her since. And she's been great. And interestingly enough, and it's not why I went to her, but she does have a background working with autistic children, and she does that. But with all the therapy I've had, excluding the autism-specific therapy that people like Shelley gave me, I've accomplished more in 3 years with this person than I have in, my entire adult life with a therapist.
I imagine that just helped in feeling understood, because if you don't have somebody with that background, psychoanalysis can be really foreign.
Yeah.
The second part to that, I wonder if it facilitated the growth that you experienced in your relationships and intimacy. I think one of the things that tend to become residual for those who recover is the social aspect. Like I think I heard Bonnie say that you still feel that there's some residual psychological, emotional delays. How did the therapy contribute to that growth, or how did that evolve so that you're now, if you are, comfortable with physical intimacy, emotional intimacy, touch, and all of that? Can you talk a little about that?
Well, I've been comfortable. I've been comfortable probably since I was 5 or 6 with touch and stuff like that. And as I write about in my book, from college on, in terms of physical intimacy with women, I was probably too comfortable with that. But that was a problem. I mean, because it wasn't connecting in the way that I really wanted to. And yeah, I think that therapy was huge in connecting to that part of me, because that part of me was there, but it was so deep down in there that it took a lot of that to actually connect me to it and to help me feel that. Because I thought, hey, everything is great, I'm connecting with people, I'm successful, this other stuff, what's the problem? But I also realized that I was lonely, and I realized that I was hurting people, and I didn't want to hurt people. So thank God I found her, and she's been really good. I'll get right back to you. She's had her hand up for the...
I work with kids who have developmental disabilities, and one of the kids is 7, and he's starting to talk about this awareness that you are discussing about he knows he's different, and has said things like, why did God make me this way? I'm such an idiot, things like that.
Yeah.
And I wonder if you experience, similar things like that, and if it continued on, depression, as you became a teen or early adult.
I did, and I experienced that again. Probably, I felt that way probably through until college, or even maybe until the 11th grade or so. I just kept putting myself out there. I don't know if I was a glutton for punishment or what, but I just kept putting myself out there until things started to click. And I think when you put yourself out there enough, it starts kind of helping. But yeah, I felt that way. I felt there were things wrong with me. It wasn't the autism label, but for me, it was just what kids used to call themselves. And it looks like a lot of you grew up in the 70s or 80s, so a lot of you knew what that was like. And so it was those things. It was that I was awkward, that I was a wimp, that I was this or that, and that there was something wrong with me. And you know what? I believed it for a big part of me, but I also just was so determined to be a part and to be connected and be accepted that I just kept putting myself out there. And eventually, some things started to click. But I don't think a lot of people could do that.
Well, and I'm not sure that every child with autism or Asperger's disorder has that motivation.
No.
I mean, it's hard for us to know whether they do or don't, but, you know, if they're relatively comfortable just as they are, they're not going to put themselves out there and get negative feedback, which you were willing to do.
Right, but you know, just if I can, just to add to that, you know, I think that it's so important to be careful about labels. You know, with our son, you know, our son's a happy boy, and he's a sweet boy, and I want him to be like that. I want him to learn, and I want him to grow, and so forth. But I don't want him to feel that he's different or abnormal. And so, we're doing everything we can as parents to try to insulate him from that. You know, he's only 5, he's only in kindergarten, and it may be difficult as he gets older, but it's terrible to feel that way. I didn't feel that way as autistic, but I felt that way in other ways. Okay, go ahead. Yes, I'm sorry, you.
I just wanted to make a comment. We were talking about the time frame, that it struck me that it was when you became a parent that things really changed for you on some level. But that's 5 or 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It's
true. That helped too.
I love how you talk about the role model of your parents, and somehow I'm sure becoming a parent, like we all have parents in here, was such a profound moment. And anyway,
No, thank you for that. But even though that happened, you know, I acted out. You know, when I found out that he was autistic, and that he was for sure autistic, you know, I acted out in my own way, and you know, it was very hard. And I thought that, you know, until about a year or two ago, I didn't think I was going to have any relationship with him. I mean, I was there with him, but I didn't think we were going to connect or anything. I just really felt terrible. And then we had our daughter, you know, who is not autistic. She was diagnosed initially, but she more as a precaution, but she's not. And you know, she's 3, she's going on 30, and we connect in like, it's just amazing the difference. And I'm now sensing that maybe I'm going to be able to have a relationship like that with him one day. It may not be the same type of relationship, and it's going to take a lot longer, but I see that hope. I didn't see that hope at first.
Well, you might need to give it, you know, you might need to give it till he's much older. You just have to see.
He's his own person.
I don't think you can know till you're there.
Yeah, and I'm seeing that. I'm learning that as we go.
But I mean, he'll continue to grow and change the way you did, and you know, it's a building block.
And he's his own person. He's going to do his own thing, and he is going to be his own person.
But I mean, I can reassure you that when my child was 5 or 6 years old, I really did not have any meaningful connection to him whatsoever.
And her son, by the way, I've spent some time with Bonnie's son, and he's up at Evergreen State College up in Washington. He's a bright boy. He's you know, based on what Bonnie's told me, shared with me about her son and where he was at, he's just amazing. He's in an amazing place. He's doing well in college. He's made amazing progress for where he started. And you know, again, everyone's different. Everyone has his own journey. But even when I see that, it's inspiring for me to know for my son that there's hope.
Well, I mean, I think part of the reason that it's important for you to be out there, John, and for us to have these examples of people who do well, is because people who have a diagnosis of autism can do very well. And that's not to say that everybody's the same or everybody's going to be equally successful. But I think part of what we have to be really militant about as parents is this isn't a quick fix. It requires excellent help. But look what you can do. I mean, it's very inspirational to see a person who starts out, you know, very regressed and very withdrawn, who comes into the world and can become a fully participatory person. So that's kind of one of the messages for me about all this is, you know, John may be the first person you've met like this, but there are other Johns out there, and we're going to be meeting those people, and we have to stand behind those people when we're told it's too expensive, we can't do this anymore. I mean, that's my, you know, my message to all of you is my kid got the help. What kid doesn't deserve the help? But anyway, I wanted to ask Shelley.
And we have one question over here.
Sure. No, I mean, we've got more time for questions, but I wanted to ask Shelley, could you talk a little bit to them about what John was like as a young boy?
As he said in the book, he was very cuddly. He did a lot of tapping rather than talking. and he was not connected to his mother. The first step was going to the home and trying to get, even though she was intense, trying to get some connection between the two of them, and what she would write in the log. She was an architect and wrote everything down. I didn't even know I said so much. But nonetheless, she did everything to get the connection. We did it with toys. We did it with puzzles. And he didn't want to do it. It was like he was holding himself apart and would not. She fought for him. And then it became, he would use bottles a lot. It was signal for the bottles. And he didn't want to do that. But she held firm. He did do it. Eventually, they did build a connection. Started with the shoe, but it got to the rest of her.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Tell them about that.
Well, I remember we had a video of him feeling not okay, but he went to her shoe rather than to all of her. He didn't make eye contact with her. I mean, everything he said about the light switches, the toilet, flushing, all the stuff, we saw it all. However, after we worked and Cedars-Sinai worked, when he graduated, I mean, you did have feelings. You were the one that cried at graduation. I mean, it was like almost as if you knew you were leaving a very, very safe place. And you're right, none of us wanted you to go to a regular school. We were worried about what you would feel, but your mother pushed on. She was going to do what she was going to do. That very quality that she had of pushing and demanding and wanting both worked for him and then later as an adult. It was hard because she wouldn't let go. I mean, and when it was time to let go, back off, let somebody else take over. We had therapeutic companions that helped. But you were a terror. I mean, you go to the park with a therapeutic companion, see a baby, and rush to pull the baby's hair. I mean, yeah, you're ready for that. It's tough.
But is there any question that John was autistic as a child?
Well, he had all the autistic signs. Every one of them. Not relating, flushing the toilet, doing the lights. Those were the signs at that time. I think there's no question he would have been on the spectrum today.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, let's get her. She's so patient.
Into my question was going to be, were there ever any other diagnoses that were considered or added or thought about? And then on that same note, was there ever any introduction of medications either positively or negatively at all in your life?
No medication. Then I was diagnosed several years ago as ADHD. Not for focus, but for impulsivity.
But we see that happen after the autism diagnosis is removed. We see a lot of people that look a little ADD or a little ADHD.
Yeah.